In this lesson, we'll learn about the principle of exaggeration. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here we have a simple animation of this character that is going to try and reach for this apple that's on the top of a shelf or refrigerator or something like that. So right now I just have 4 different drawings to illustrate this. So if we click play, you can see that he's trying to reach up. So it's very clear just by playing this as to the action that's taking place. However, this could be pushed a lot further just with a few additional drawings to have it resonate much more effectively with the viewer. Okay? And by exaggerating the action, exaggerating his pose, we can really achieve that. So if you've ever seen paintings or drawings of, like, say, celebrities where they've been turned into a caricature, where different facial features have been exaggerated dramatically, think of the exaggeration principle in this case as kind of a caricature of a realistic action, okay? And if you can achieve that, then you'll be able to really animate and really have something that the audience will just find more accepting. They'll really believe it if it's more exaggerated. Okay, so what you can do is we'll go ahead and take this little red bracket right here for our frame range. I'm just going to pull it all the way out. So I've got some additional cells. I've got 4 additional cells here that we can do some drawing. Now really quick, I'll kind of show you the setup that I have here. I've got one layer here for the line work of the character, as you can see. This bottom layer here, that's basically just the step stool and just the rest of the little layout that we have. And then I've got a sketch layer. So basically what I would do first is I sketch out the character, and then I've just put the clean line work over. So what we're going to focus on is just sketching out these next drawings. Okay, and then I'll pause the video for just a second. I'll drop in some clean line work. That way we can kind of finish out seeing how the animation plays without that sketchiness. Okay, so we'll go ahead and come here to our first available cell here. I'm going to turn on my onion skinning right here. I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm just using this little blue swatch right here to sketch with. Okay, and so what we want to do is really draw the extreme pose, kind of the maximum stretchiness that we can get out of this guy as he tries to reach for this apple. So this is kind of a cartoon character. We can really have a lot of fun with it. So what I'm going to kind of start off doing, since we've got onion skinning on, I'm going to kind of start to just sketch out what we already kind of have here. He's already kind of stretched, but I'm going to kind of start just by kind of tracing over what we've got. Something like that. I'll take my selection tool here. I want to select that information, and then I'm going to start to kind of stretch this out, and then I'll tweak it even further. So what I want to do is basically stretch him to a point to where he almost just can barely touch the apple. You don't want to come up to, like, say right here to where the audience just will know that, hey, there's no way. But you want to kind of give them just an inkling of hope that he could possibly touch that apple. And so that really will help sell the overall action here, the overall intent. All right. So kind of just stretching that out initially. I'm going to actually switch to my cutter tool here, and I'll kind of start to kind of tweak a few of these little spots just by selecting them. So I just want that hand to just be almost being able to get to that apple right there. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of bring this arm in just a little bit more here. Kind of like that. Okay. Coming back to my brush tool. Kind of squint his eyes there. He's really trying to get to that apple. He's just desperate. Okay. And then he's going to be a little bit more on his tippy toes. So just kind of changing that, kind of simplifying that just a little bit more. kind of trying to line those toes up with the previous pose. So he's just much more stretched out. Kind of like that. So this would be kind of the extreme pose, the maximum point that we can get him to stretch. Let me hide that line work while we do this. So there you can see that's his kind of a maximum point. And so you wouldn't want to just stop the animation there, like, oh, that's as far as he can go, and it just stopped abruptly. So what we can do is kind of make this stretchiness feel more apparent, more kind of like a rubber band when you pull it as far as it can go to where you have that tension to where it's almost kind of pulling back on you. Kind of creating a little bit of that tension there will really help amplify this little cartoon character's struggle. So I'm going to come to the next cell here, okay? And we'll take this same drawing and we'll just kind of bring it back down just slightly. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just trace over again just kind of what I just drew. Something kind of like that. I'm going to have the arm come out just a little bit back in the other direction. So we're kind of employing a little bit of that squash and stretch that we talked about at the beginning of this course. So come down right about there. I'll take we can just take our cutter tool and I'll select all of this and I'm just going to kind of pull it down just a little, maybe kind of right about there. Okay. Zoom back in. So his feet will be kind of a little bit more bent now because he's kind of come back down. Okay, and so basically what will happen here is it'll kind of create a stuttered motion, right? So all I got to do now is basically we're able to achieve this exaggeration with just 2 additional drawings, because now I can take that first drawing I did where it's kind of his maximum reach and the second drawing here, and I can duplicate them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically take my selection tool here and I'll select all of that sketchiness. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to come over here to the second to last frame. So I'm skipping over that. I've got this one here I just copied, and then there was that one where he comes back down. And then the second to last frame, I'm going to paste it there. And then that second drawing that I created right there on frame 12, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to place it on the last frame. So I'll copy it, and we'll go to the last frame. And we can already kind of get a sense of it. If we click play, you can kind of see that kind of that stretching right there. You can almost get to it, and it kind of creates that staggered effect and really kind of helps amplify the struggle. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quick is I'm just going to pause the video. I'm going to throw some clean line work over these drawings here, and then we'll come back and play it one more time so you can kind of see it just a little bit more clearly. Okay, we're back, and I basically put my clean line work over that the sketches that we just did there. Again, we basically just did 2 additional drawings. Okay, when we started, this is where we kind of had him, where he came up. That was his maximum reach, and it just kind of stopped abruptly, so that was kind of jarring, right? But it also just doesn't resonate very well with the viewer. And so we sketched him out to where he's really stretched out to the point where he's almost touching the apple. And I think that's important, because you don't want him to be at a point where the audience just will assume that there's just no way. So kind of having it just right there at the edge kind of creates that sudden curiosity in the mind, like, oh, is he going to make it? Is he going to be able to get that apple? And so that's at his most extreme maximum point of stretchiness. And then we don't want it to just stop abruptly there. We really want to kind of amplify the struggle of that stretchiness, of that struggle that he's undertaking there. And so we're adding to the exaggerated action by having him kind of recoil just slightly, okay, as you can see there. And so it's just 2 drawings. That's all it was. And then I just copied them. So we have these 2, and then basically taking that extreme one and pasting it again, and taking that second one where it recoils and pasting it again. So one after the other. So let's go ahead and play this back. So you can kind of see that now. It's kind of a, just almost got the apple. And so now we've made this a little bit more fun. It's much more fun than when it was just like that. Okay, and so this is something that will resonate with the audience. They'll just find it more convincing. They're more inclined to accept it now. So this would be an example of exaggeration. We're taking an action and we're just exaggerating it, really taking the pose itself and just kind of pushing it further beyond its limit. And this really works well with something cartoony like this. Okay, and so like I've said with a lot of these principles, you know, take each one and just experiment, see what you can do with them. And I think this is kind of a nice little exercise to kind of get that across. Okay, so a lot of fun. All right, so in our next lesson, we're going to move on to another principle. Again, these are, as I mentioned a few times in this course, these are all principles that were conceived by Disney animators back in the early days of animation. And these guys were just geniuses to really come up with all of these concepts. And so you really have to admire them. But in our next lesson, we're going to talk about the principle of solid drawing. So stick around and we'll see you then.